Welcome to the 59th CAS Meet the Winners video series, and I'm Michael Wynn, and I'm here with my co-host Amanda Beggs, and today we have Phil Palmer with us. And congratulations, Phil, on your recent CAS award for outstanding sound mixing on your work on Better Call Saul, season 6 for the season finale.
Thank you very much. We were to say that we were surprised would be an understatement.
It's an incredible culmination, of all 6 seasons. So I think to get it right at the end, I think everyone knew you deserved it. And then you this was your last opportunity. And I think everyone wanted to make sure you walked out of that room with an award. At least I know that's how I felt.
We should definitely start it off by mentioning that Phil is a 30-year production sound mixing veteran with a Emmy award, and he has a amazing resume list. And one of the things that I noticed right off of the bat is that you were a sound utility on Wayne's World. And I remember watching that movie as a kid. So I have to start there and talk about how did you, before we get into Wayne's World, just talk to us a little bit about how you started your career in sound, what you got interested. Did you have family in the business, or how did you get into this whole thing?
I had nobody in my family remotely even interested in being part of the film industry. I started my sound career as I should say I started out as a guitar player, and as many guitar players end up as sound men. I was in the sort of sound community and the music community in Dallas, Texas. And we in the 80s, it was a booming business in Dallas. There was a lot of touring companies based out of Dallas, as well as it was a great music scene. And I started in live sound and got a call one day from somebody who I had met all along the way, who was a production sound mixer, and he had a non-union movie that his crew wasn't able to go do, and he wanted to know if I'd join him. His name is Bob Wald. He's an icon in the business, and he's retired, but he still keeps in touch with us all. And he gave me that opportunity to work, and I had no idea what I was doing. And with the luck and help of many people along the way, I learned the ropes.
So you got this opportunity with Bob Walls to work on this independent feature, and coming from a live sound background, what was that like for you? Was it like love at first sight, or were you like, how did you? Was that the point in which you said, "Hey, I'm going to do this and go for this"?
Well, it definitely paid better, and so when you're in your 20s, that has a lot to do with it. But it was just something that was really it was a challenge for me. Much of the equipment is the same, but the process is very different. So I had a lot of knowledge of equipment and how things work, but I didn't know how to apply it into the world of production sound. And so that's what I spent most of my time trying to figure out. And, it took me a while, because I was definitely in a live production sound mode, but, and also you got to remember, back in the late 80s and even way into the 90s, there was the job of the utility sound tech. It was a sound cable person, as it was when I was there. Was very different. You were in support of the boom operator for the most part. He'd be on set and he'd find his spot, and then we'd run the cable out to him, and then we'd manage making sure that he's all good, and then your support for the sound mixer as well. It's a lot different now. The job is, if I had to do it now, I don't think I'd do it as well. But and so, like you brought up Wayne's World, when we did Wayne's World, there weren't a lot of wireless microphones on Wayne's World. It was pretty much a hardwired boom the whole time, and most of the time it was a single boom. and there was some double booming here and there, but for the most part, it was a very simple sound recording process. The complicated part of that movie was the integration of all the playback for all the different musical scenes and everything like that. But it was that was quite an experience.
And I'm sure everyone's got to be thinking of the iconic "No Stairway to Heaven" scene. Working on that. I don't imagine that was a playback, that they actually had to physically play the guitar a little bit for that.
A little bit. There's a little bit of playing and a little bit of a little bit of movie magic and throughout that movie. I mean, that music store scene, I think it was a music store in San Fernando, if I remember right. And we set up. There was the drums there that Dana Carvey played and everything like that. That was one of the rare instances where we mic'd up a whole drum set. If you look at it now, you can see the microphones. I mean, nobody cared, but it was just such an interesting experience, and from much of the movie, if not most of the playback on that was, single track playback to some speakers, and Duke Marsh was playback on that, and that was where Duke and I met. So there was a lot of history there.
Now, Duke Marsh is a fellow sound mixer in the community, or okay, yeah. For those who don't know, including myself,
Harrison, we call him Duke. I think he's recently retired, but he went on to be Jim Webb's boom operator, and then from there he went on and became I think Dave McMillan's boom operator for some time. So he worked in the business as a boom operator very successfully, and then started mixing, and then I think he's most recently retired. So I think of that group, I might be the last one standing. Tom Nelson was a sound mixer on Wayne's World, and he and I did several movies together. Great experience.
So to think that was in 1992. So here we are almost, I'm trying to do the math gracefully here, 33 years later. And talk about your transition a little bit into sound mixing, Phil. Like what was that like going from, hey, I'm working as a cable man and going to want to work as a sound mixer? How did that come about?
Well, I did my term as being a boom operator as well. And I worked my way up. I like to say I worked my way in, and then I worked my way up. I boomed for quite some time, and I felt like I was pretty good at it. And then when the opportunity came for me to be a second unit mixer on a particular TV show that was shooting, I actually had moved back to Dallas for a short period of time, and there was a show in the late 90s. Everybody knows it, Walker, Texas Ranger. And I was one of the sort of regular folk on that show as in the crew, and when second units would often come around, that show had the second unit almost every day because of so much stunt work. By the end, it was very much like Dukes of Hazzard, and I just raised my hand one day and said, "How about me?" And then had to figure it out from there. So it was that was an experience. That was probably about 1998 or so, 99 maybe. And I've been mixing ever since with a lot of help from friends.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the things I was thinking and hearing you talk is there must have been some very influential sound mixers in your career who really helped formulate the mixer that you are today. Is there anyone in particular that comes to mind?
Well, of course, yes, and we honored him at the CAS Awards, Peter Devlin. Peter and I go back to we met on the football field at Texas Stadium for when Oliver Stone's Any Given Sunday came into Dallas, and I was the second unit boom operator on that particular production. And when things got real big, they'd move me over to first unit, and then the boom operator on that show, Kevin Serkey, He had a bit of an injury that he had to kind of step away for a little bit, and I folded into first unit and worked a lot with Peter. And from that point on, we become lifelong friends, and he's been incredibly supportive of all my ventures, my career, and has imparted a lot of knowledge and process along the way. And I couldn't have done many of the things that I've done without his help and support.
Yeah, I had a chance to read the article that they wrote about in the CAS Quarterly, and it was really interesting to learn more about his path and so forth for that. And well, wow, this is amazing. I mean, there's probably so much we can talk about, but we should probably talk a little bit about Better Call Saul. You started on this 2015, right? So this has been running for 8 years.
Yeah, it took us about 8 years to do 6 seasons. There's a big gap in between each season, sometimes as much as 10 months or a year before while they're processing it and editing and then airing, and then so it took quite a while. We actually, the first season we went to Albuquerque just after Breaking Bad, and we started it in 2014, and then it aired in 2015. So if you kind of look at it that way, it was a long run with a phenomenal group of people, and I'm very grateful that they brought me on. I was one of the few departments that was different from the conclusion of Breaking Bad, and I was it was one of those great times where I answered the phone at the right moment.
How did you get in with Vince Gilligan? Because I know obviously now, I mean, you've been with him for a while, even other projects as well. I mean, El Camino, and then some other smaller things with him. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Vince's work. I think a lot of people are. I mean, to get to work with someone who is such, I mean, it's so cliche, but that's a real storyteller. I mean, that's someone who has a very distinct vision and knows how to carry it out. I mean, that's the dream, is to be able to work for someone like that. I mean, how did you get involved with him? And are you just like pinching yourself that you've gotten to work with him over all these years?
Well, I do pinch myself that I get to work with somebody, well, for him, of course, but someone who is such a masterful storyteller and is so creative and such just a phenomenal human being. He's just a nice guy, and and we have a lot of fun when we're working together. There's a what I consider very unusual level of collaboration. Everybody is made to feel as sort of equals in the process. We're no idea or no comment or anything is ever held back or looked down on. We just talk with each other as if this is our project, instead of it's your project, are you getting what you need? It's like, are we getting what we need? And that's a different statement, to say, are we getting it versus are you getting it? And so it's just been an incredible experience. I honestly, they didn't know who I was. I think there was 2 or 3 people that were unavailable, and I think I answered the phone. I'm not quite sure how it happened. I do have some people probably to thank for that. I'll leave that for offline, but it's an example of, you never know what the phone call is going to lead you to. And so sometimes you have to sort of take that leap of, all right, well, I'm going to go do something with a whole bunch of people that I have no idea what it's going to be like. And it might be terrible. It might be great. And I showed up on day one, and I thought, oh my God, this one's going to be great. And I was able to I was able to keep a certain level of comfort with me, with my crew, but also able to integrate some local folk into the sound department. So I've been able to work in a manner that I like to work, which is great. They respect the fact that, you know, I'm much more comfortable if I have the people that I want around me, instead of we've all been on the shows where someone else dictates your crew compliment. And so I'm grateful that they allow me to do that. They from the first production meeting, when Peter Gould, who is the showrunner with Vince Gilligan, they, you know, of course, Vince was, you know, the Breaking Bad, and then Peter was in Breaking Bad, and then as the shows developed, there was a bit of a handoff from Vince to Peter for Better Call Saul, and then Vince stepped away for a little while and then came back. Was always a part of the team, that was never any distance, but he let Peter Gould really run the creative, the writers' room, and so it was just from that first moment in there when they wanted to talk to me about how they want to work and how do I work and how can we work together, that I knew that I was going to have a good time, and it lasted a long time, and we're grateful for it.
You mentioned your crew. Was Mitchell Giver, I know has been your boom op on many projects. Was he with you for every season on this as well?
No, started out, Patrick Martins did the first season, and then Mitchell, and I've had a little bit. Mitchell's been along most of the way. He skipped some in the middle, a little bit in the middle. He needed a break, and I totally get it, because we were out there for a long time, and he was like, I need a little break. And so
your second home in New Mexico.
Nobody knew that was going to happen, but and then you know, we did a movie with Vince out there, which was a sort of a bridging of stories with El Camino, and so. And that tagged on to a little bit of one of the seasons. So it was, you know, there was a couple of times we were out there for, you know, a solid year, you know, working. So
it's nice to have that consistency, though, as far, like you said, they allowed you to sort of carry that. And I mean, and I'm sure, you know, Michael can attest to this as well. It's so nice when you do get to work with the people that you have that second hand with. You don't have to explain things. They just know it. They just get it. I mean, so that's incredible that you got to carry that with you throughout. That was a long run.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't go unnoticed when you know you have a crew where, I mean, people talk about it all the time with Mitchell and I, that we sort of go about our business because he knows what I want and what I want to hear and what I like, and then I know that he's taking care of that. So a lot of times there's not that much, you know, communication. So when a utility person or someone who comes on the team, they'll be like, you guys don't have to communicate that much. I'm like, no, we did that years ago. Now we're just doing our work, you know, and but we find more of our time we're talking about our other interests and everything, but because he knows exactly what I want to hear, and then I know he knows that and is working to achieve that, and so we just sort of like approach every day trying to make every take better than the last. That's our motto.
There's so many things that you're saying that are resonating, you know, I think with the both of us, Phil, just, you know, since we're all production sound mixers. And, you know, one of the things that you said before you started talking about the crew, how you had such a consistent crew, was that you had unusual collaboration. And talking about, you know, your collaboration with the showrunners, Vince Gilligan, and also how that transferred to Peter Gould. And talk to me about some of the things that maybe in your practice that you really think foster those type of relationships. You know, for mixers who are listening, it's like, you know, hey, my show may or may not be going that well. What are the type of qualities do you think in a mixer that help foster that type of collaborative relationship amongst showrunners, producers, directors, and crew?
You know, that's a really great question. I find that a lot of it is how you approach the storytelling, because we're there to further the story, right? We're I always consider us, hand in hand with every other department. Not, I mean, there are certain departments that feel as though they're more important than others, but we'll just leave that be. But the reality is that without any single department, you can't take props out and then the storytelling work. You can't take sound out and the storytelling won't work. You can't take hair and makeup out. I mean, everybody has to work together, costumes, everything. So the reality is that I do my best to not make demands, but just find out the best ways to make an operation work, a scene work, a story work. And sometimes it requires me giving up things to get things. And the trick is, which was not easily learned, and I make the mistake every now and then of picking the wrong thing. But sometimes, you have to, like, I'll give that up so that I can have this scene sound better, because there's more to work with in that scene. With this scene, I don't have as much to work with, so I need this scene to work. I need everything on this, so I'm gonna give up a little bit here, and because we can't have everything all the time, it's just not going to happen, And so, I mean, on the shows that I work on, and so the trick is I think is to find that level of collaboration that works well with everybody. It's like, come into situations where you may need something or something will work better for you, but come into with an option for them to help them out. Like, I need this, but how can I help you so that we're both gaining something? So often, there's always the discussion of how do we get a boom mic in there? Well, sometimes you just can't, and so you just got to find a way to make it work. But when you can, and there's something keeping you from doing that, going to whoever you need to go to. Sometimes it's the director, sometimes it's the DP, sometimes it's somebody else, and saying, this is this is going to make the story sound better or work better. How can we make that happen? It's an element of collaboration that and cooperation, which I think is essential to the relationship building. It's so much relationship building because I mean, sometimes we're on a show for just a month or two, and you kind of you get in there and then you're going to get out of there, and sometimes you hope you don't work with the folks again, but when you're on something that you're going to be working on for potentially years, it's really important that everybody is working toward the same goal, and it requires sometimes giving things up to get things.
Yeah, you often hear the comment from other sound mixers, and we, or when I'm talking to my own boom op, we say, hey, we got to know what to fight for, and it's really great to hear from, with someone with your experience level talking about that give and take in that relationship. And I mean, even in the most recent, CAS podcast, In Conversation, with, I think, Patty Hanlon, and, it talks about the same thing of just knowing what to give up, the things that matter. And, and I feel like those are things I'm just starting to learn by talking to guys like you and other mixers and Amanda in the community, that, hey, the things I used to think were really so important maybe aren't as important. And it's great to hear you say that, that unusual collaboration. Yeah, sometimes it's given, but it sounds like it's also earned, and it really is established in those relationships that you were able to continue through this, 8-year run on a, such an amazing show, by the way, so.
Thank you. One of the first thing, what was so funny, I remember our first meeting with Peter and Vince. They came up to me and they said, The person, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Peter Vince. He said, how do you feel about overlaps? And I thought, and I went, I think they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I just, cover both sides. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, it's like the hill to die on it for me is not overlaps.
Mm-hmm.
It's other things. It's like we have ways to cover overlaps, right? We don't have, sometimes, I remember when I was a boom operator, we would fight so often when you're with one camera and somebody's off camera, you'd fight so hard to get a clean dialogue, but sometimes it takes the air out of the scene, right? Sometimes it's for the scene to be able to be on its feet, you got to let them overlap, and so sometimes you ask for that one take where they're doing it clean so they can grab a little bit here and there, but for us to saddle a desire to get a completely clean track on every take on actors, and they really actually need to feed off each other, that's being selfish, right? So I said, I love overlaps. And they went, oh my God, it's so great. And I said, hit me with other questions. This is going to be fun, and so that's how our relationship started. I said, no, I want to be able to, oops, sorry. I got to position my camera there. Sorry. I want to, what I said to them, I believe, of course, this was a while ago, I said, I want you to be able to tell your story, and I'm going to record it. It was simple as that. I said, I'll tell your story. I'm going to record it. And if there's something that I'm feeling we're not going to get, if we're not getting something, you'll hear from me. But other than that, just keep going. And that's how we've always done it.
One of the titles that were thrown around for this video is The Art of Mixing with Phil Palmer. Would you say that storytelling is, it sounds like that in your particular workflow, in your process, and how it is you think is a priority for you as far as and speaking of, like, can you speak to some of the unique challenges with Better Call Saul, or maybe things that made that show throughout the years different in a way that you kind of, establish new practices? Or
storytelling, I mean, that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to tell a story, and everybody is involved in telling that story. So it's all of these, like, it's not just three legs of a stool. It's just like all these legs, but it doesn't work unless everybody's working together. So, yeah, I mean, and one of the things about Better Call Saul, and was very much so in Breaking Bad, is they certainly do love a wide shot, and it became a little bit of it's very much of a signature on many things. It's, we'd start the scene with, the camera on a dirt bag in the corner, right? And we play it. They don't break into it. They just let it. They do everything. We would do every scene from every wide angle, which would require me to use a lot of wires, and sometimes very uncomfortably so. And I don't know whether it was a written motto or a sort of unsaid process in editorial, but the concept of the way editorial operated in speaking with many of our team there was that they never cut into a shot unless there was a reason to cut in. So sometimes if it's feeling really good and it's wide, it's going to stay wide, right? And they'll let dialogue play and they're a mile away, and so I have to adapt for that, and so it's like, I'm not gonna get this big opportunity to get a big scene on a couple of booms. It's like, this is gonna play wide. Now, often we'll go in and we'll shoot it and we'll punch in and we'll start moving in, but sometimes not. So you have to. it's a real important thing to get with the director and say, what's your plan? You know, what's your plan here? Where do I need to make sure that I'm covered so that I'm able to help with the storytelling? And that's something that I like to do. Here's a pro tip. I like to go to the directors after they've been there for a while and they've got some of the episode or the show under their belt, and I honestly ask them, are we telling your story? Are we telling the story the way you saw it? And often it's met with nobody's asked me that yet, you know, or just like, oh, I haven't really thought of it in that manner, but it's true. It's like, we're here to help tell the story. And so, it allows me to, get into the space with the director and find out how they want to tell their story and if we're achieving that for them. And I think it's really important for them to know that we are there in support of the story.
I mean, it's interesting hearing you talk about all the wires too, but also, I mean, and this is the storytelling element. I feel like there's been a push, not just in television, but across the board in our industry of this more naturalistic sort of sound of, not, like you said, overlap is good, and what helps the actors get into the character in a way that feels real and natural. And now it's sort of our job as production sound mixers to accommodate that it's not about the getting every line perfectly clean all the time with no overlap, that we've now shifted into this world of naturalistic storytelling. And like you said, if there's a moment that maybe something is lost, we can try and tweak it, because we obviously don't want story elements to be lost to the sort of, everything is, natural and real. There is still an element of manipulation that still takes place when it comes to telling the story. But yeah, I mean, that's what you're saying, is that it's about being natural and real with those little tiny tweaks that we do. And it sounds, I mean, and I feel like Better Call Saul is definitely one of those shows where it's the world it's a real world. It feels very real. It sounds very real. And that's in no small part to the work that you've done, that everything doesn't feel, fake and looped. And I mean, when you get pulled out of a story because you don't, it's that studio quality, what you've managed to capture is very real. And I have to imagine, this is what you've honed over, however many, years of work, but it's really, really brilliant work. But it seems like you were given you're given the freedom, you're given the opportunity. I mean, this feels like a show in which, it doesn't feel like there was a lot of no's. You're working within the confines, but obviously of what the shot is and whatnot. But it does sound like these are people that allowed you to sort of do your best work, and that has to feel, what a dream show.
And it definitely is the case. Yes, definitely allowing us to do our work. But we also have to respect the fact that we can't get everything that, it's like, I have to know that I'm not going to get everything I ask for or anything I want, but offer up ideas. Right. And then a perfect example, on the final episode, we have this bus, that is chugging up this mountainside with all these. Okay, if anybody hasn't seen the last season, so Michael, cover your ears. There's somebody very important to the story that's on the bus, right? And it's a I won't tell you what kind of bus it is. There's a lot of people and there's a lot of chains and things on this bus, and so there was no way we were going to be able to do this scene on the bus. Like, they thought, oh, we're just going to get on the bus and we're going to shoot it. And then they went to the mountain road and they went, there's no way. And so, we all pitched, LED walls and everything like that. And eventually we all came down to that, where they ran a camera car up there and got plates. And then we parked a bus on a stage, and they completely put a video wall around it. And so the downside of that is that we don't have the sound of the bus, right? And the bus is kind of part of a little bit of the character in this scene, right? So I said, let's bring a guy out and let's record the shit out of this bus. And
Nice.
they went, that's a great idea. So they brought someone out for 2 or 3 days, because they did it once and they didn't like it. They wanted to do it some more, and they said, go ahead. And they had microphones everywhere. They had microphones in the engine cavity, by the foot of the driver. They had an ambio rig in the center of the bus. They had microphones all over the place, and they drove that thing up and down all these mountains, and they had all of these tracks of the actual bus that we were doing this scene in, so that when we did the scene, and they're just they're doing this, on stage, they were able to layer in and build this soundscape of this bus, and it was both accurate and real. And so and I that was an example of like, hey, how about this, and they went with it. And so I'm incredibly lucky to work with the both Vince and Peter, but also Diane Mercer, who's the executive producer of post-production. She's our post-production person. And Diane just completely, like, if I call and I say, we need this, she will evaluate. Sometimes she'll say, we don't have the budget for it, but she will evaluate, she'll float it, and they'll be like, they agree. So we're going to do this. And there's been other cases where we thought we were going to have some problems of a particular location a couple of seasons back. And it was expensive, but they changed all the lighting in a giant warehouse because it was too noisy, and that rarely ever happens. I went in there and recorded it. And I said, I think we got a problem. And I sent it to post-production, and I said, run this through the soup and let's see whether you can get rid of it. And they said, yeah, but it's going to thin out the dialogue pretty heavily. And so they changed the lighting. And so that just doesn't happen that often, especially in television. And so I'm incredibly lucky to have been part of that experience.
Because I was going to say, that all sounds, these are all, correct me if maybe I'm misunderstanding the timeline, but it sounds like you're relatively heavily involved before, the shoot day is happening. How heavily were you brought in early? Were you there on scouts? Every show is a little bit different, especially with TV, but it is sounding like you did have some access to whether it be locations, or there were conversations that happened before, 24 hours before things were going to be shot. Would you say that you were brought in, that this is a television show that allowed you a lot of like pre-production sort of, conversations?
And
Great
how did
question.
you possibly pull that off in a TV schedule?
Yeah.
Because I want to know.
Yeah, because I'm like, it sounds like you were in early.
How is that possible, Phil?
They did not. I generally don't get to go on scouts because the scouts are when we're shooting. But I have a really great relationship with both directors of photography and the gaffer and the key grip. And they know that I can't be there. And so after every scout, usually they come over and talk to me. And they say, we're thinking of doing this, we're thinking of doing that. You need to be prepared for that. You're totally screwed there, but we're going to help you out here. What do you think about this? So we talk offline about it, and they'd send me pictures. Marshall would, one of our DPs would often, shoot some video with his phone, and then he'd send it to me, and he'd be like, this is what they're thinking. What do you think? And so another example of just collaboration across the board. We're all about to go do something again together, so I'm very excited about it. But can't talk about that. But it's I don't really know anything anyway. But it's just great because everybody knows that they're going to get to do their best work if everybody's doing their best work.
And that really speaks to the That really speaks to the we process that you spoke about, Phil. And speaking of, I noticed here that you one of the re-recording mixers I did an interview with a while back, Larry Benjamin.
So great.
On the show, and then Kevin Valentine, and Stacy, who we hope to do a interview with here on the same show. Talk about your interactions obviously throughout the years, I'm sure the audio post team became established. Did you guys start to have, collaboration and conversations there with that team?
Very much so. I mean, after the first season, they came in later, and so the first season was a little bit just sort of keeping notes, and then once they locked in the post team, but beyond that, once I knew that they were, pretty much part of the team as I was, and also Nick, who's our sound supervisor, was the sound supervisor through Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So I had a direct line to the sound post team from day one. And so I would often send emails and I document, it's like, you're going to have a tough day here. This is something to look out for. I got you this because I couldn't get that. We're shooting, a scene that's supposed to be a desolate thing, but right behind us is an interstate. Sorry, and so I got you a bunch of interstate noise so you can enjoy, it's just, there's just a lot of communication, and Larry and I talk a lot. There's always an email and text thread that we have going on sound concerns, and be on the lookout, that kind of thing. So yeah, we've developed a really good working relationship. I kind of know the tolerances about what they have to deal with, so I know that when I'm listening to something, they're gonna where it gets into. I mean, I got to tell you, Albuquerque is challenging on a number of things, and one of which is the noise floor. Wherever we shoot, it was really pretty noisy, and so we had a lot of challenges with that, and so it became a lot of me just trying to get as much signal to noise as we could so that they could drop the noise floor out. But it's just having communication and understanding. They also understand that, like, if they got a real bad day, it's like, oh, this scene's, we're gonna have to work on this. I earned it, it's like, then they know it was really bad. It wasn't because I wasn't trying, so, and they could look at my notes and they could see my scribble of crying about whatever. So,
well,
yeah.
Phil, I would be the first to say that the work on that show, from your standpoint, the whole team's standpoint, is absolutely outstanding. And it often, you had spoke about sometimes living in the wine as well, which and some of the framing, just the cinematography from the lighting, that's just all around was beautiful. It's iconic. The frames looked like art. And and for a sound mixer saying that's some good looking wides.
Yeah,
so
some good looking wide shots.
And the sound mixer saying the wide looks good, man. That's, you really did something great, And so Phil, I want to give, and I know we both want to give you the opportunity here as we get close to wrap up time. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about specifically that we didn't get the chance to discuss? That you want to put out there to the sound community, other sound mixers, or anything about the show that comes to mind that you're thinking, man, they should have asked me this?
I think we've really talked on it. First of all, I want this final season and the last couple of seasons, but especially this final season and the episode that we so surprisingly won for. Mitchell Gebhardt and Andrew Chavez are my crew. Mitchell, boom, and Andrew is my utility, but also second boom. And I would this award goes out to them, full stop. They without them doing the hard work so that I can sit here and get interviewed and win awards, it's not lost on me. And they put in the hard work every day with the crew, maintaining all those relationships. And I'm so grateful that I have a crew that puts up with my idiosyncrasy and desire to make it a little better every take. And so that's just, we say that all the time, and then, pick the hill you want to fight on, because you can't fight on them all. And then just, keep whittling away. If you're going to get another whack at it, if they're going to say, hey, we're going to go again, what can you do to make the next take a little better than the last one? And sometimes it's a little adjustment on the clothing, or sometimes it's like, do nothing, but often it's like, just like, what can we toss a carpet over there? Can we do, whatever we can do, and just being creative and look at opportunities. And I'm so grateful to have a great team behind me, and as well as the creative team. We finally call them Burbank, which is this large group of people that are at the writers' room, and all the producers, and they're just, everybody's, it's quite a family. We've grown to be a family over all these years.
And I was gonna say, now you get to continue on the as yet, unknown, unnamed potential future work. But, that just means what's exciting for the rest of us, because it means that, you get an opportunity to keep working with them, which is awesome. And we get an opportunity to get new stuff to watch. So I think it's a win all around. But yeah, what an incredible, who knows how many more years now you get to be with them. And that's really awesome. And maybe one day they'll let you come back from New Mexico, and maybe you'll get to do something in LA.
Well, I'm doing something here now, so it's pretty good.
That's true, but with a different team. But I was saying, maybe Vince is maybe a little too in love with New Mexico. I don't know.
He's pretty in love with New Mexico, let me tell you. Yeah, I think he's got his helicopters in Santa Fe now, so he's digging Santa Fe. So, but yeah, I don't, that's something about. And I would like to say this: that crew in New Mexico, there's a phenomenal group of filmmakers that live in New Mexico, and they are incredibly creative because New Mexico is not an easy place to shoot sometimes, right? And so you got to really be creative with your how you do things. It's windy. It can be really hot. It can be really cold. Storms come through in the afternoon and they wipe you out. And that's just the exteriors, And so the crew in New Mexico has been just an amazing family to get to know, and I'm grateful that they brought me into their fold. They after a couple of seasons, it might have been season 2 or 3. I had to change. I had to change kind of how I did a lot of things, because I had come off of doing a really long studio run of another show, and here we are talking about more stuff. But what I kind of changed how I did some things. I brought everything in a lot tighter. I minimalized my cart. I had to kind of get small and agile, and I kind of called it low to the ground, and then I had to be able to deal with environments and things like that. And I remember one of the grips came up to me after the second season, and he kind of tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Now you're thinking like a New Mexican." And he walked on. And that was actually awesome. One of the best compliments I ever got on the whole time I was there.
Well, speaking of thank yous, Phil, I just want to take the opportunity on behalf of CAS to say thank you for your time today, and and interviewing with us and talking about your career path and process. And we're really looking forward to seeing the new adventures that you travel ahead. And For all the viewers here, I just want to say thank you also for watching. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to our channel and hit the notifications tab. That way you can get notified for future videos as they come available. So with that, I thought we'll say goodbye. Take it easy, everyone.
Thanks so much.